Thank you. I just have two quick questions. Looking to the future, obviously, hurricane and wildfire seasons are sort of around the corner. You and I talked. I actually asked you, being a native Californian, if anything was on fire, and unfortunately, fortunately, no, and that's good. But I know that you continue. Are you concerned with the way you're spread out through COVID and everything else, anticipating fire and hurricane seasons? Or you've mentioned that you have adequate staffing availabilities for any disasters, but I was just curious and wondering to know if you're concerned about what could happen during these two seasons.
Yeah, well, I'm in the business of risk management and prioritization. And so if there's events that happen that require a life-saving response, I feel comfortable that we will always be able to respond to that event with the federal government's capability. In addition to what FEMA has right now, and still about 2,500 personnel left that are responders that could go out to events, I'm leveraging right now 500 people from the whole federal government to help me with the vaccination effort. So I would leverage more on the rest of the federal government. Right now we have about 9,000 people deployed to do vaccination, and that includes about 4,500 or 5,000 DoD personnel. So it's always a concern. It's something I watch, and I look at future threat, and I manage that risk to make sure that we have enough resources. But the response is bigger than FEMA. It's state and local government and all the capability they bring in. It's all the non-disaster grants, the $2 billion we put out a year to build that capacity. We continue to do that, to build that capability so that collectively we can respond to those events.
Mm-hmm. Over the last several years, with your 25 years of experience, I'm interested to know what situation has been your biggest challenge. Has it been the COVID response, or was it a particular other disaster event that you would say was probably the most difficult one that you've had, the difficult challenge, I would say?
Yeah, well, obviously the biggest impact I've ever seen, the most deaths, is COVID. It's just, what it's done to our country, shut down our economy, the impact it's had, far beyond physical damage that we traditionally see in other disasters. It's just been, it has been far greater than any other disaster I've been to. So, and having the whole government, the whole country and the whole world affected at once has just been significant. I would put that up there with 9/11 and Katrina, on my list of the biggest events that I've been involved with, all for different reasons, and some geographically unique, but all emotionally impacted. I think, or at least the whole country felt the impacts of those three events. Mm-hmm. And as far as challenge, the challenge is always, to me, I think we all collectively have the same goal, save people, help people. It's how we get there, and how we do that underneath unity of effort. And when we're not unified, it makes it that much more challenging. So it's important that we use the systems, NIMS, the National Response Framework, and all the systems that exist, and the training that we provide to the whole government, to state and local government, to private sector. How do we involve individuals, private citizens involved in that? And how do we collectively get a unified effort is what needs to happen in those big events.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I wanted to ask a quick question on the supplemental firefighter grants. We put a lot of money into, let's see, a total of $400 million was provided for assistance to firefighter and safer grant programs. Of this amount, 76 has been obligated in the AFG, the assistance to firefighter grants. And I'm concerned about the volunteer firefighters. Apparently, I've gotten numerous anecdotal evidence that because of the lockdown and with COVID, that our volunteer firefighters have not been able to raise the money that they would normally, like a boot drive or a bake sale or something else that they really rely on every year to raise a lot of their discretionary dollars. And apparently it seems that the volunteer firefighters, and we kept trying to direct them to this program, that they sometimes their applications are not either sufficient or in a timely fashion or something like that. Is there any way that FEMA can be more helpful, or we can be more helpful to FEMA to get information to our volunteer firefighters to know how and when and the best way to fill out these applications? Because I believe some of the money has been that was set aside for our volunteer firefighters was not actually able to be used in that manner.
Yeah, I'm not aware of funding that has not been used. I know that there is a focused effort of helping the volunteer firefighting organizations apply for assistance. We've just implemented our new FEMA grants system that makes it a little bit easier to apply and track some of the funding requests, but I'd be glad to come back and brief you on some of the efforts that we're doing across the country to help and really see and reach out to those organizations to see what the issue is and if there's any gaps in assistance based on what we've seen in the last year.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll follow up on that. Yep. The one last question is, the chairman mentioned in his comments that there's 900 ongoing disasters, and maybe 4 or 5 years ago with the previous FEMA director, one of the ideas that was put forward to me was some way to unwind these disasters to maybe state responsibilities or local responsibilities to get them off of that's an awful lot on a plate for FEMA. Do you have any ideas on that, or what do you see that's worked to be able to close the book on some of these disasters that I know some of them have been on for probably decades?
Yeah, I think that sometimes when you take into account, all the requirements that are needed to close out these disasters, and whether it be requirements for documentation, building and permits, environmental, and then all the auditing, that sometimes it takes a while to close these disasters out. I think that looking at some opportunities, whether it be state managed, which we've done in the past, or look at things that allow for greater estimates across and simplify the process. So, for example, our simplified procedures that look at large and small projects, right now that bar is a very low bar. And so what happens is for small projects underneath $150,000, when there's a net small project underrun, they don't need to request that unless there's an overrun, right? Which makes the closeout much easier. So simply raising that bar would allow, would be less complexity in the closeout part of that, and give a little bit more flexibility to local governments on how they use any underruns, as long as it's used toward, disaster. They would be able to use that, but yet.
So an underrun would be like unspent money that for the specific.
Yeah. So let's say you had 10 projects and you estimated $100,000 per project. And at the end of the day, you did it for $870,000 because of efficiencies. So there'd be some incentive there to local government to, as long as they reuse that for maybe mitigation or something like that, they'd be able to
and then close it out,
right? And it'd close out much quicker than right now. Every project being to the exact penny, and that's the problem now. Is that every project's to the exact penny, and anytime you have a program like that, we're incrementally adding dimes or dollars to close things out.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.